Hi guys, how are you guys doing tonight? I'm just eating my ice. I am here with a true story for you guys, if I can talk. I've been craving ice so extremely worse here lately. When God winks at you. Okay, this story is called The Smartest Mistake. Okay, you ready? The Smartest Mistake. What'd you say, a steak?
Smart steak.
There's steak in the book. You'll see.
Smart steak.
Yeah, there's steak in here. There is. She needed money. A single mom with 2 kids to raise, Ruth Fredel wasn't making ends meet as a university lab technician. The ad in the paper seemed to jump out at her. For sale, Chris Steakhouse. A veteran New Orleans restaurateur, Chris was selling his business. I can do that, said Ruth positively. That was a big idea. Having experience running a restaurant was not something on Ruth's resume. But she had faith in God. She believed in herself, and she knew that the name Chris Steakhouse had great value. For 40 years they built up a loyal clientele. All she had to do was keep it going. So Ruth Fredel mortgaged her house for $18,000 to buy the restaurant. From that day forward, the woman with a degree in chemistry and physics learned restaurant management on the job. I don't know whether I was naive or just plain stupid, but I never thought I would fail, she said years later. The hours were terrible, but the customers saw how hard I was working, and they wanted me to succeed. Besides, I thought my employees would respect me more if I worked right alongside them, so I did. For the next 10 years, her business grew stronger and stronger. They went from selling 35 steaks a day to over 250 steaks a day. Then disaster struck. Her restaurant burned to the ground. She owed a large sum of money, so if she didn't reopen right away, she'd be bankrupt. Moreover, being out of sight, out of mind for any length of time would be deadly for business. What to do? What to do? Ruth was in tears when she arrived at her banker's office, hoping he might have an idea. Why don't you just reopen in the building you already own down the street, suggested the banker. Ruth thought about it. Not a bad idea. She'd purchased the other location nearby for wedding receptions and private parties, but how could she get it ready quickly? Then a God wink. It just so happened that a man who did construction was in the bank at the time, said Ruth. He said he could get my new location open in a week, and he did. But just as they were about to move in, Ruth was given more bad news. Her attorney reminded her that the original agreement stipulated that the name Chris Steakhouse could only be used in the original location. By moving to a new address, she could be sued. Now what to do? She couldn't very well change the name of the business that she'd spent a decade building up, not to mention the untold value of the prior 40 years in which the restaurant operated under that name. Ruth thought about it for a moment. She said a quick prayer. I don't have time to do a marketing study on the name, and I can't afford a lawsuit, so just put my name in front. That's it, she said decisively to her attorney, and again later that day to her sign maker and menu printer. They all looked at her blankly. Just add my name in front of it, she repeated to them. Just call it Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It was a mouthful, and we are not talking steak. Almost without missing a beat, Ruth reopened in the new location just 7 days later. When her restaurant had burned to the ground, she had looked heavenward and said, Why? Why me, Lord? Then when she rolled up her sleeves and got to work at solving the problem, a wonderful blessing unfolded, another God wink. The original restaurant only sat 60 people. That caused 2-hour wait to get in, discouraging some potential customers. But the new restaurant, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, seated 160. Business just boomed, said Ruth. The following year, Ruth started franchising. That's when she learned the outside of New Orleans. The name was a serious liability. People seemed to be continually mispronouncing it. Ruth's Chris's or Chris's Ruth. One man in San Antonio, called it the stupidest name he'd ever heard, and only after was coaxed in and tasted the steak did he change his mind. Like every other time, Ruth said a prayer and faced the name problem head on. In Baton Rouge, Houston, and Dallas, she came up with an advertising campaign that said, "We know we have a funny name, but we have great steaks." Another ad boldly said, "Our steak is so extraordinary it needs 2 names." Soon, food critics, charmed by the odd name and the self-deprecating advertising, started writing about the restaurants, giving Ruth's Chris Steakhouse top-notch ratings. Facing the devastation of having her restaurant being destroyed by fire was one thing, but coming up with that name at the last minute, that was the smartest mistake I ever made, said Ruth Frettel. Over the years, Ruth uttered many prayers asking the Lord to help her build her business, but having a fire destroy her restaurant wasn't one of them. Later, she could see that the fire was an unanswered prayer. It moved her into a larger space and inspired the unique name that we all know today. At nearly 90 Ruth's Chris Steakhouses across America. Look them up online if you want to see them. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I hope you guys have a great night. Good night.